The Killer in the Backseat. In the mid-1960s, a terrifying case unfolded in New York that gave birth to one of the most chilling urban legends, the killer in the backseat. A woman named Mary Andrews noticed a car tailing her late at night, its driver flashing his headlights repeatedly. Panicked, she pulled into a gas station. The attendant rushed out and whispered for her to get out of the car immediately. When police arrived, they found a man crouched in the back seat clutching a large knife. He had been waiting for the right moment to strike. Similar cases emerged in Texas and California where attackers used the same tactic. The legend endures because it's rooted in fact. Authorities now warn drivers to always check their cars before getting inside. It's a reminder that the most dangerous threats aren't always on the road ahead. They can be hiding silently behind you. The call is coming from inside the house. In March 1950, 13-year-old Jeanette Chrisman was babysitting in Columbia, Missouri when she phoned police. Someone, she said, was trying to break in. The line went dead. Hours later, the child's employers returned to find her brutally murdered. Investigators concluded the attacker had likely been inside the house when Jeanette made the call. 2 decades later, similar attacks on babysitters across the Midwest kept the story alive. The idea that a killer could already be inside the house became a national obsession, inspiring films like When a Stranger Calls. What makes this legend so disturbing is that it flips the idea of safety. Your own home, the one place you should be secure, becomes the very trap. Even today, every creak or faint noise in the night reminds people of that chilling phrase, the call is coming from inside the house. Organ theft after a night out. In the 1990s, authorities in India uncovered a horrifying criminal operation that gave birth to one of the world's darkest urban legends, the kidney heist. Poor laborers were promised jobs, but instead were drugged and taken to makeshift clinics. When they awoke, they discovered surgical wounds where their kidneys had been removed. Interpol confirmed that organ trafficking had become a multi-billion-dollar global industry. While the iconic image of a victim waking up in a bathtub filled with ice rarely matches reality, survivors have described waking up in abandoned buildings or remote houses, their organs already gone. This legend persists because it's rooted in genuine fear, the idea that you can be targeted not for money or valuables, but for the very parts of your body that keep you alive. The body under the hotel bed. In 2010, a couple checking into a Memphis motel noticed an unbearable smell. They complained multiple times before staff finally lifted the bed frame. Underneath was the decomposing body of a murder victim. This wasn't the first case. Similar incidents have been documented in Las Vegas, Atlantic City, and even abroad. Transient motels make ideal hiding places. Rooms change hands quickly, and no one would think to look under the bed. The legend terrifies travelers because it's entirely plausible. Guests sleep inches above evidence of a violent crime, oblivious to the horror below. It's a reminder that the thin veneer of normalcy we rely on can hide unthinkable realities. Poisoned Halloween candy. In 1974, on Halloween night, Texas father Ronald O'Brien handed his children Pixie Stix candy laced with cyanide. His 8-year-old son Timothy ate one and died within hours. To cover his crime, O'Brien distributed poisoned candy to other children, hoping to disguise his intent and collect life insurance money. This single act sparked nationwide panic about Halloween candy tampering. Police and parents began checking every treat for pins, razors, or poison. Though most reports turned out to be hoaxes, the Candyman case was tragically real. Decades later, the legend still shapes how parents treat trick-or-treating. It's frightening because it shows how the people you trust most can be the ones to harm you, and because it turned an innocent tradition into a source of fear. The Phantom Hitchhiker. In 1939, a Chicago man driving along Archer Avenue picked up a young woman in a white dress. She said her name was Mary and asked to be dropped off at Resurrection Cemetery. But when the driver stopped and opened the door, she had vanished. Locals call her Resurrection Mary, and dozens of drivers have reported similar encounters. Some even claim to have found personal belongings left behind after the ghostly passenger disappeared. The legend of the Phantom Hitchhiker endures because it taps into universal fears, loneliness, guilt, and the unknown. Whether or not ghosts are real, countless drivers will tell you they've seen something on a dark road they can't explain. Sewer Alligators of New York. On a freezing February day in 1935, New York City sewer workers pulled an 8-foot alligator from a manhole in East Harlem. It had likely been a pet, flushed into the sewer when it grew too large. Other sightings followed, fueling the legend of colonies of alligators thriving beneath Manhattan, feeding on rats and garbage. Experts dismiss the idea. They say alligators couldn't survive the city's winters underground, but the documented captures gave the myth staying power. The thought of deadly reptiles living just beneath your feet is absurd, yet disturbingly believable. And like most urban legends, it's rooted in the unsettling truth that the world beneath us is darker than we imagine. The Vanishing Sodder Children. On Christmas Eve, 1945, the Sodder family home in West Virginia burned to the ground. 5 of the 10 Sodder children were presumed dead, but investigators found no remains. Witnesses later claimed to have seen the children alive after the fire, fueling suspicions of kidnapping. The Sodders spent decades searching, even erecting billboards across the country with their children's photos. In 1967, they received a mysterious photograph of a man resembling one of the missing boys. To this day, no one knows what happened. The lack of evidence, no bones, no clear cause, keeps the legend alive. It's haunting because it shows how tragedy can mutate into mystery, leaving families trapped in endless uncertainty. The Curse of the Crying Boy painting. In the 1980s, British firefighters began noticing a strange pattern. After devastating house fires, one thing often remained untouched: cheap prints of a painting known as the Crying Boy. Tabloid newspapers called it cursed. Panicked homeowners mailed their paintings to fire stations to be destroyed. Experts later revealed the prints were coated in fire-retardant varnish, explaining their survival. But the legend had already taken hold. The idea that an object could carry doom captured imaginations worldwide. Even today, some refuse to hang the image in their homes. It's a perfect example of how superstition can spread faster than the truth. The Slender Man Stabbing. In 2014, two 12-year-old girls lured their classmate into the woods in Waukesha, Wisconsin. They stabbed her 19 times, later telling police they believed they had to kill to appease a fictional internet character called Slender Man. The victim survived, crawling to safety, but the case horrified parents and psychologists alike. It was a stark reminder of how online myths can warp young minds. Slender Man was created as a piece of internet horror fiction, but once the legend escaped its original context, it became deadly. This tragedy shows how easily fear and belief can blur the line between fantasy and reality. The Black-Eyed Children. In the late 1990s, a Texas man reported a terrifying encounter. 2 children approached his car at night, asking for a ride. Something about them felt wrong. When he looked closer, he saw their eyes were completely black. Similar stories quickly spread. Witnesses described the same pattern: children appearing at night, asking to be let inside, and exuding an overwhelming sense of dread. Skeptics call it mass hysteria or pranks, but believers insist the encounters are real and dangerous. The legend endures because it corrupts innocence itself: children. The last people you'd expect to fear become the monsters at your door. The Elevator Game and Elisa Lam. In February 2013, Canadian student Elisa Lam was found dead in a rooftop water tank at Los Angeles' Cecil Hotel. Security footage released days later showed her behaving strangely in an elevator, pressing multiple buttons, peeking into the hallway, and making unusual gestures. Her death was ruled accidental drowning, but the footage fueled speculation that Elisa had been playing the Elevator Game, an urban legend from Korea. The game supposedly transports players to another dimension if they press elevator buttons in a specific sequence. No evidence linked the game to Elisa's death, but the unanswered questions keep the legend alive. It's a reminder of how mystery, tragedy, and the internet can combine to create stories that feel larger than life.